So we have taken a huge gap. Not we, but uh, to be to be distinct, I took a huge gap after the last video I have uploaded to YouTube. So then, and here we go. We're back with the Cambridge IELTS 16, passage number one, test number one as well. Now, what do you have here is, excuse me, can you please remove yourself? Thank you. Um, we have true, false, not given questions, and we have table completion. And two things here as passage one, you don't necessarily have to spend a number of hours, huge number of minutes. I don't know how much you spend. It depends on two factors. Factor number one, it depends on how you understand the text, and two, and how well you manage your time. Now, because I'm not going to be able to finish it in under 15 minutes, because I'll have to explain every single answer that I make here. Um, I advise you to pay attention to the texts. I mean, to the explanation. I'm sorry, to the explanation that I provide. If you don't understand something, please do not hesitate to leave your question or anything in particular in the comment section below. So, one thing, polar bears, we can see that the true false not given question. The first thing you have to understand that they follow the order, follows the order, follows the order. That's number one. And number two, just because it follows the order, on the other hand, what you have to do is that you have to differentiate the statement with the passage. You will have to understand these two things. And I'm just going to highlight that for yourself. All right. Now we have polar bears. Polar bears, we have they suffer from various health problems. Now we have a word polar bears. Polar bears are being increasingly threatened by the effects of climate change, but their disappearance could have far-reaching consequences. They're uniquely adapted to the extreme conditions of the Arctic Circle, where temperatures can reach minus 40 degrees Celsius. One reason for this is that they have up to 11 centimeters of fat underneath their skin. Humans with comparable levels of adipose tissue would be considered obese, and would be likely to suffer from diabetes and heart disease. So diabetes and heart disease is that this highlighted these highlighted words are health problems. So various health problems. Various is more than two. I mean more than one. We have one, two, easy. Due to buildup of fat under their skin. Which means the answer is obvious here, which is false, because it's not that the polar bears suffer. It's humans. Humans would be likely to suffer from diabetes and heart disease. Yet polar bears experience no such consequences. So the answer to question number one comes in the paragraph one. Study by Leo and his colleagues compared different groups of polar bears. They compared different groups of polar bears. A 2014 study by Sheeping Liu and colleagues sheds a light on this mystery. What did they do? They compared the genetic structure of polar bears with that of their closest relative from a warmer climate. Now, the brown bears. So you can already see the answer comes, the question, answer number two. Answer number two comes strictly from here, which is another false, right? There's another false, because here it's saying that different groups of polar bears. It's not only different groups of polar bears. And I want you to show the reason why it's false. Many people would assume this as true. They compared. I'm just going to copy. They compared the genetic structure of polar bears. Whoops. Polar bears with that of their closest relatives from a warmer climate. Now compare this with this one. I'm just going to highlight that. I'm going to take this. So the study done by Liu, they is referring to Liu and his colleagues, right? Compare the genetic structure of polar bears with that of their closest relatives from a warmer climate. Warmer climates means the brown bears. All right. So they compared. I'm gonna take another color here. They compared. They did indeed compare genetic structure of polar bears with that of their closest relatives from a warmer climate. The polar bears. I'm gonna take this and put it this to this color. Different groups of polar bears. And as you can see, in order for this text to be true, different groups of polar bears and um uh and other groups of bears as well would be as an option to consider this statement as true. So compare different groups of polar bears and other groups of bears from a warmer climate. Or I do not necessarily know. I just want to remain intellectually humble because if I do not really know how do brown bears are considered to be, I mean, they live in a much more, I mean, they're wild bears. I cannot say that they're only wild bears because polar bears are wild. They're also wild enough. So yeah. Now, Leo and his colleagues were the first researchers to compare polar bears and brown bears genetically. This allowed them to determine the genes that have allowed polar bears to survive in one of the toughest environments on Earth. Liu and his colleagues found the polar bears had a gene known as APOB, which reduces levels of low-density lipoproteins (LDLs), a form of bad cholesterol, and humans, mutations of this gene are associated with the increased risk of heart disease. Polar bears may therefore be an important study model to understand heart disease in humans. So that the reason for that is that they have a gene called APOB, which reduces low density lipoproteins, and this study could be important to understand heart disease in humans. I'm not sure why, because while you're reading something that is this is this is considered to be some sort of an article that is closely related to about animals. And whenever you're reading, it has to be interesting because obviously, if it's not, then what is the purpose of doing that? Because you would not really necessarily get the answer. I mean, you will have to, in order to understand it, you will have to make it interesting for yourself. Because if a particular text or a book or an article, it does not matter the size. If it's not interesting, then there's no point of reading it. It's just a waste of time. As as per my opinion. So the answer to question number 3 is going to be not given. And the reason for that, they were the first researchers, but the text is not saying anything they're not saying anything that is related to first research. We do not know who actually performed this research before them. Was it Leo and his colleagues were the first scientists, experts, or whatever they are? And yeah, so that's why polar bears are able to control their levels of bad cholesterol by genetic means. We have we have this number 4 are able to control the levels of bad cholesterol means this allowed them to determine the genes that have allowed polar bears to survive in one of the toughest environments on Earth. Liu and his colleagues found that the polar bears had a gene known as APOB, which reduces levels of low density lipoproteins of form bad cholesterols. In humans, mutations of this gene are associated with the increased risk of heart disease. Polar bears may therefore be an important study model. The genome of the polar bear may also provide the solution for another condition, one that particularly affects our old generation, osteoporosis. Number 4, they're able to control the levels of bad cholesterol by genetic means. Hmm. It is found that by Leo and his colleagues that polar bears had a certain kind of gene, APOB, that reduces the level of bad cholesterol. So what does that mean? They survive in one of the toughest environments on Earth because they can control their gene, which is known as APOB. So that's what the answer is going to be true. And I'm gonna text it as T. Female polar bears are able to survive for about 6 months without food. The key word here is 6 months without food. The genome of polar bears may also provide the solution for another condition, one that particularly affects. So I'm just gonna give this one thing I forgot for. One that particularly affects our older generation is osteoporosis. This is a disease where bones show reduced density, usually caused by insufficient exercise, reduced calcium intake, or food starvation. Bone tissue is constantly being remodeled, meaning that bone is added or removed depending on nutrient availability on the stress that the bone is under. Female polar bears, however, undergo extreme conditions during every pregnancy. Once autumn comes around, these females will dig maternity dens in the snow and will remain there throughout the winter, both before and after the birth of their cubs. This process results in about 6 months of fasting. There we go. Another answer for us, which is going to be answer number 6. Is that right? No, 5. Sorry. 6, but 5. The answer is going to be question number 5 is going to be T as well, which is true, which stands for true. Now, the word without food is fasting. It was found that the bones of female polar bears were very weak when they came out of their dens in spring, where the female bears have to keep themselves and their cubs alive, depleting their own calcium of calorie reserves. Despite this, their bones remain strong and dense. There you go. The answer is question number 6 is going to be false. I'm just going to take that. I'm just going to give this a false. Um, the reason that they were very weak, no, they were not weak. They remained strong and dense. The polar bear's mechanism for increasing bone density could also be used by people one day. So, psychologist Elanda Linos and Alan Goodsham found an explanation for this paradox in 2008. They discovered that pregnant bears were able to increase the density of their bones before they started to build their dens. In addition, 6 months later, when they finally emerged from the den with their cubs, there were no evidence of significant loss of bone density. Still, another proof for question number 6. Hibernating brown bears do not have this. Okay. All right. There we go. We have a new vocabulary. I'm just gonna highlight that for myself. Hibernate bears means hibernate bears are brown bears. Do not have this capacity and must therefore resort to major bone reformation in the following spring. If the mechanism of bone remodeling in polar bears can be understood, many bedridden humans and even astronauts could potentially benefit. Right? Really? 7. Uh, could potentially benefit. There are chances that it can be used for human in the future. Is that true? I think it's true, right? By people one day. I mean, it does not. We're not necessarily looking at the word one day. Uh, Now, what reasons why polar bears should be protected? People think of polar bears as unintelligent, and however, Tennoji Zoo. I wanna find the word Tennoji Zoo. Okay, we have Tennoji Zoo, Osaka. However, this may not be correct. For example, people think of bears as unintelligent, and the medical benefits of the polar bear for humanity certainly have their importance in our conservation efforts, which is a start for the answer of question number for the table completion question number 8, which is over here. All right. Why did I do that? And there you go. Now, but these should not be the only factors taken into consideration. We tend to want to protect animals we think are intelligent and possess emotions, such as elephants and primates. Bears, on the other hand, seem to be perceived as stupid and in many cases violent. So, violent, it is going to be the answer, right? The answer is going to be what? Violent. So, there we go. They are violent. The answer to question number 8. No, another. However, this may not be correct. For example, in Tenoji Zoo, a bear has been seen using a branch as a something. This allowed him to knock down something else. Um, and yet, anecdotal evidence from the field challenges those assumptions, suggesting, for example, that polar bears have good problem-solving abilities. A male bear called Gogo in Tenoji Zoo, Osaka, has even been observed making use of a tool to manipulate his environment. The bear used a tree branch on multiple occasions to dislodge a piece of meat hung out of his reach. A bear has been using a branch as a what? So as a what? So a piece of where was it? He observed making use of a tool to manipulate his environment. The bear used a tree branch. A tree branch is the tool. So the answer is going to be as a tool. This allowed him to knock down somewhat. Mm, a piece of meat. So the answer is going to be meat. A wild polar bear worked out a method of reaching a platform where something was located. Problem-solving ability has been witnessed in wild polar bears, although not as obviously as with Gogi. A calculated move by a male bear involved running and jumping onto barrels in an attempt to get a photographer standing on a platform 4 meters high. A wild polar bear worked out the method of reaching a platform where a something was located. Who? What? I mean, who? The photographer? So, photographer, photographer. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. So, we have the answer. So here we have the answers for this passage has answer to question number 8. I mean not passage, but paragraph 8 from 8 to 11. Now, polar bears have displayed behaviors such as conscious manipulations of objects and activities similar to A. In other studies, such as one by Alison Ames in 2008, polar bears showed a deliberate and focused manipulation. Um, For example, Ames observed bears putting objects in piles and then knocking them over in what appeared to be a game. The study demonstrated that bears are capable of agile and thought out behaviors. These examples suggest bears have greater creativity and problem solving abilities than previously thought. Okay, are they that much intelligent? That's a very interesting thing to do. So Ames observed bears putting objects in piles and then knocking them over in what appeared to be a game. So polar bears have displayed behaviors such as conscious manipulation. Conscious manipulation is focus manipulation. Focus manipulation of objects and activities similar to a what? For example, Ames observed bears putting objects in piles and then knocking them over in what appeared to be a game. So similar to a game. Bears may also display emotions. For example, they may make movements suggesting something if disappointed when hunting. As for emotions, while the evidence is once again anecdotal, many bears have been seen to hit out at ice and snow, seemingly out of frustration, when they have just missed out on a kill. So they may make movements suggesting frustration of this disappointment. They may also, yeah, there we go. They may form relationships with other species. Moreover, polar bears can form unusual relationships with other species, including playing with the dogs used to pull sleds in the Arctic. Remarkably, one hand-raised polar bear called Aggie has formed a close relationship with her owner, Mark Dumas, to the point where they even swim together. This is even more astonishing since polar bears are known to actively hunt humans in the wild. If climate change were to lead to their extinction, this would mean not only the loss of potential breakthroughs in human medicine, but more importantly, the disappearance of an intelligent, majestic animal. All right. Now, there we go, guys. We have finished passage one. If you have any questions, make sure to comment down below. Do not hesitate. If you have any questions, it does not the type or the form of the question does not necessarily matter. We obviously I will come up with a response to your question at any time of your request. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you have any questions, once again, I repeat, comment down below, and I'll see you on the next episode, guys.